Yo, Kingdom, community vibes, community ties. Terrance Tucker is the brother who's connecting the tribe.
We back in the building, man. We got somebody special to me, man. This is a special moment for me because I got, man, somebody who was like my father, man, growing up, man. And you guys know him, the legendary, man. You see my shirt, man. You see my shirt, man. You see my hat. You see my hat, man. We represent those C.A. Johnson Green Hornets today. We got my guy, man, the legendary Coach Tim Gates in the building. Yes, you see him, the legend. We're not holding him hostage. He came on his own. Coach Gates, man. You see them Hornets, man. They out there, man. They listen. This is special because if you went to C.A. Johnson, man, when I was growing up, man, this guy was like the guy you feared. You went to school scared to run into Coach Tim Gates because you knew that it was going to be a problem, man. But he fathered so many young men, you know, that came from, you know, that region right there, man, and beyond. So we are so happy to have this guy here today. Now, before we get to him, let's pay two quick bills, okay? Number one, if God woke you up this morning, give him all the praise because he is worthy, he is able, he is so worthy to be praised, man. Look around the world right now, you see it's just madness going on, all right? So give him thanks, okay? Give him all the praise. Number two, you hear the music playing in the background. So that means that you know where we're at, man. We're at the Groove Smoothie and Juice Bar, located on 7510, okay, Garnet Spray Road. Come out and please support, man, black-owned business, man, black-owned business. We're gonna make sure Coach, okay, gets a smoothie later, all right? But come out and listen, man, get your smoothie, man. Health is wealth. Health is wealth, man. Coach, you know about good health.
Definitely.
Health is wealth, man, all right? Coach, man, thank you so much for coming out today, Coach.
I appreciate it, Terrance.
You still got that strong grip, Coach. Still got that strong grip.
Well, I work on it.
Coach, man, you know, you've been a legendary figure, man, basketball coach for so long. But a lot of people may not know you before you start coaching, Coach. Where are you from, Coach?
I'm from Lexington, South Carolina, just across the river, actually. Attended Lexington Rosenwald High School, and that was a school that was before integration. Right before integration, African Americans didn't have too many choices as to what schools they attended. So, you know, we had in Lexington County, we had Lakeview High School, which was West Columbia, and about 8 miles away, you had Rosenwald High School. Those were the two main schools in Lexington County that African Americans attended at that time.
Okay. Now, we also know that you went to a HBCU, Coach. A HBCU, Waverly Community, man, stand up, man. Waverly Community, stand up. Allen University, man.
That's right.
Allen University, stand up. We got one of your greats here, Coach. Why Allen University?
Well, actually, I attended Allen University after high school because, first of all, I had an opportunity. I went down to South Carolina State. I had been recruited for football, and actually, because my high school coach was the head coach at Allen University, I decided to attend Allen University. The very first few weeks of our training, I had a hernia problem and wasn't able to participate at Allen, but my high school coach, Coach Simon, was there and kind of advised me to pursue academics and that type of thing. Actually, after 1 year at Allen University, he left and went to South Carolina State University. So needless to say, I was very interested in the academic aspect of it, but I attended Allen University because actually my mother and father were married on Allen's campus. My mother was a student at Allen, and also at the time the acting president was my uncle, Dr. Dent. So I had a lot of history associated with Allen University. That's basically why I attended there. And actually, I tell a lot of people that I didn't think I was going to any other school other than Allen University from the start. And actually, I was a little disappointed when I wasn't being recruited at all. There was no interest being shown by the staff at Allen University at the time that I attended. But anyway, it was a blessing in disguise because I attended Allen University for 3 years, left there, and the blessing was that I got an opportunity to again coach and teach at a school that my mother graduated from, which was Booker T. Washington High School, and lo and behold, from Booker Washington the next year, 2 years later, I was over at C.A. Johnson High School, and of course, you know, the rest is history. I was at C.A. Johnson for 20 years, and I'll tell you, it was just a blessing, 20 years of blessing for me, and it was one of those things where, you know, I went to work, but it wasn't like going to work. It was like, you know, things were just so wonderful there in terms of academics and athletics that, you know, C.A. Johnson was a blessing for me in terms of my career and also in terms of my educational growth.
Wow. Coach, I mean, you're one of the premier legendary high school basketball coaches, man, around this area, man. When you first got into coaching, did you see this right here for you?
Terrance, actually, I didn't see any of this. When I first got into coaching, honestly, to be honest with you, my interest was in football more than basketball. Basketball at that time was more like a pastime kind of a thing, but I had a love for basketball anyway, and I got involved with it. One of my rival school, Lakeview High School, was a rival at the time. Coach Carl Williams and I were very close. Carl was 10 to 12 years older than I, but Carl was a legend where he attended high school, and of course he was an Allen University graduate also. But I kind of got involved with him at Booker T. Washington, and I left there, and my interest was in basketball. I learned a lot from Carl Williams, and I learned a lot after coaching. I'll tell you a story. One of the amazing things that happened to me early on in my career at C.A. Johnson was that I was a basketball coach, and I learned early on about basketball, and I learned how to shut up and sit down and watch, because I had a player that was about 6'5" or 6'6" at the time. His name was Carl Huey, and Carl was the best player I have ever coached. But at the time, they did not have a three-point line, and I'll tell you, we were playing Lower Richland High School. We won that game, but we were playing Lower Richland, and actually, I had told Carl that I wanted him playing in the post. Well, Carl came across the first time and shot what would amount to be a three and hit nothing but net. Then again, you know, of course, being the kind of coach I was, I'm out there yelling, and he pulled up the second time, and I went, no, and it went through. Yes, just like I called it. And needless to say, for the rest of the game, I sit myself down and watch the game and let Carl go ahead and win the game for us. So I learned early on to, you know, allow players to be themselves and not to be so demanding. Now, we had some pretty tough practices, because one of the things that I learned from my early years in coaching was that you had to practice, you know, as if you were playing in a game in order for your players to function at game level.
That's true.
Therefore, you know, we had the opportunity to do those things at C.A. Johnson, and I know that it was kind of hard, and I'll just go on and tell you this. When I first went to C.A. Johnson, it was kind of difficult because at the time, things were different. It was right at the beginning of integration, and actually C.A. Johnson had a Caucasian coach, and pretty much probably about 50% of the team was Caucasian, and the players were very good. It was a very good team, but I had to somehow try to have an identity with the team. After 3 years of being an assistant coach, I became the head coach. And one of the things that I wanted to do was make some kind of connection with the community. If you can imagine, if at the time they were busing people out of the community into other communities, and so you didn't really have a good community connection.
Not at all.
So one of the things that I first started to do was to make contact with people who lived in the C.A. Johnson community, especially Jaggers Terrace, and at the time Saxon Homes and Alabama Court, and other places like that. And we had a requirement at the time that everybody, and of course this was the entire time that I coached, but everybody had to run cross country.
That's true.
So what I did, and Terrance knows that, because you know that was one of the requirements. Two things you had to do to play basketball at C.A. Johnson. That was you had to run cross country, and you had to keep your grades up. Now those things were mandatory. So getting back to my story, we actually ran through the C.A. Johnson community every day.
Every single day.
And what we did, Terrance, was we went through some communities that at this time, and some people would probably say those were not the best of communities.
That's true.
But I ran with the cross-country runners, And I got a good relationship with the people in the community because I was involved with the athletes, and then I cared. And I'll tell you, there were many times that a lot of those guys would come to games and they would say, hey coach, I don't have the money to pay to go in. And so what I conveniently did was let them get in the game through the back door.
Wow.
Now no one can do anything about it, but yeah, some people
Yeah.
didn't have to pay to come to the games, and
Wow.
so it really worked well for us to actually build that kind of community support. And I know at the time it was probably difficult, and a lot of times guys didn't understand why things were happening the way that they were, but they were happening because I was making every effort to try to involve the community.
Right. Well, Coach, you was a heavy fixture, man, around the community. You know, so many players just, you know, listen, we benefited from your rough style of coaching. You know what I'm saying? It was a hard-nosed style of coaching. But did you learn that style from your previous stint when you was in the military?
Actually, to be honest with you, I learned a lot about coaching from my high school coach, Coach Willie Simon. Coach Simon was a no-nonsense kind of a guy, and he's a legend. He's in the Hall of Fame at Allen University and South Carolina State University, also as well as the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame. Coach Simon actually was a person that demanded a lot. He required that everyone work hard academically as well as athletically, and also, you know, we were kind of fearful of the fact that he would be on campus, and so I guess that probably is something that I took from him. I don't want to give myself credit for anything. My military experience was a great experience. United States Air Force, you know, I did 10 years United States Air Force, and all of that was great. That probably helped me in terms of being a disciplinarian, because one of the things that you know in the Air Force or in the military period, you know, discipline is a necessity. It's a requirement. And so I guess taking my experience from Coach Simon as well as my experience in the military, I combined those things to be the person that I was at C.A. Johnson. I'll tell you, it was a thing that was a blessing. And I'll just go back and give you an example. When I was at C.A. Johnson, I mentioned Carl Huey. Carl Huey was probably one of the best players in the country. Actually, most people don't know this. He was recruited by John Wooden at UCLA. Carl actually went to junior college, Taft Junior College in California because of that interest. And actually, Carl was the kind of guy, though, that, you know, I would go by in the mornings and check the rooms in homeroom. If Carl wasn't there, I went to Jaggers Terrace and went to his house, and I would tell Carl, I would say, okay, Carl, you have from now until I get back to C.A. Johnson to be back in the classroom. Of course, what I did was I would go out, you know, past Perry, W.A. Perry, and go on out to Two Notch Road and take the long route around. But I will tell you that when I got back to C.A. Johnson, Carl was in class. So that's all that mattered. And, you know, from that, I think, and that was early on in my career, I think from that, you know, we just kind of built upon some things. Just mentioning Carl, but I want to also just acknowledge the fact that Carl had a nephew, Ronald Huey. Ronald is the head coach at, now he's in Texas, in Houston, Texas, University of Houston, and he's coaching the women, but he's doing a wonderful job there as well. And I just wanted to say that. He was also one of my players, and, you know, I just can, if I wanted to, and I don't want to call too many names, but if I wanted to, you know, I've got Terrance Tucker right here next to me. Everyone knows Terrance, but Terrance played for me, and I can even remember, you know, having Terrance involved with AAU and every other kind of aspect of basketball. And of course, one of the things that Terrance would tell you was we had study hall in the afternoon, and we laugh about it. You had study. You had to be at the study hall. You had to run cross country, and you had to participate in track. And, you know, Terrance. But I just remember some other people. I just name a few people. Eugene Kuhn, for example. Eugene played for me in basketball, but he was also a cross country track person. Lo and behold, Eugene Kuhn went to Clemson University. Eugene tried out for basketball, and he was kind of a walk-on with basketball, but he was out running patterns and catching footballs. And at the time, Tommy Bowden, the football coach at Clemson, saw Gene and invited Gene to come on to the football team. And I laughed. Gene and I still laugh about this. Gene never played football in high school.
Never played football.
But whatever the preparations were, Gene actually learned enough about athletics with basketball, track, and cross country that he was able to function as a student athlete, a football player at Clemson University.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that. You know, I have I
Jamie Patterson.
talked to Jamie Patterson. I go to see Jamie's games. Jamie is a coach. Jamie is a coach, middle school coach. Yeah, and as well as, you know, I just name a few other people. You know,
a lot of them guys.
A lot of those guys are very successful. You know, you have Kerry Rich that's at the City of Columbia, as well as, you know, when we start looking at Dr. Freddie Smith, who is, Freddie's up at Morgan State University. You got Dr. Byron Davis, who is the superintendent of Richmond School District 2. I'm just naming just a few people that played for me. And of course, you know, if I go back and think about it, one of the main things that I tried to emphasize with my athletes was I wanted them to go to college. Didn't matter where they went to school, but I just wanted them to get an opportunity to go to school. And I'm just proud to be able to say right now that most of those guys did get into college someplace, graduated, and are very successful in their endeavors at this point. So it has been a blessing.
Exactly. Oh, man. So, Coach, let me ask you this right here, man, because you won the championship in what year?
1989.
Right. So when you won that championship, man, you could have left and went to, you know, man, so many different schools, right?
That's correct.
Why did you stay at C.A. Johnson?
Well, I stayed at C.A. Johnson because it was kind of ingrained in me at that time to be involved with the student athletes, the players that played for me, and I just felt like I had a commitment to the community. I talked about that early, and so I stayed, and some will say you stayed too long, but I stayed because I wanted to just maintain that kind of connection that I had with the C.A. Johnson community. You know, it was a thing where it was, they did a lot for me, and so I felt like I owed C.A. Johnson community to stay and to do those things. I had opportunities, and actually, as you know, I ended up at South Carolina State University for a number of years. That's one of my alma maters, and yours as well. I went to Allen University. I coached at Allen University actually for 7 years. So for 17 years of my career, I spent between South Carolina State University and Allen University. But before that, my first love and my forever love will be C.A. Johnson High School and that program.
You see it right here, man. Now we had some high school battles, man. We had some serious rivals, man. But one of your main rivals, man, was George Glimp, man. Right? And so let's talk about that relationship, man.
Yeah, well, we had some epic battles, I think. Just to say the least, we had players that were, I think, at the time, maybe a little better than average in terms of what people see now. Once I go to a lot of games. Before we came on, I was just telling you that I attend a lot of high school basketball games, and I see players now, and I'll just say this, and this is not to take anything away from the current players, but Eau Claire High School and C.A. Johnson High School, as well as AC Flora, I'll tell you, and talking about players, our relationship, Coach Glimp and I, was a good relationship. We had rivalries and we battled, and it was nothing like, we would go over to Eau Claire and they would have the heater on, and, and then they would come over to C.A. Johnson and we would have the heater on, and both floors were tartan floors, which were rubber floors at the time, and the players were running around and slipping and sliding and skating all over the place, and so it was a battle, and every game we played, whether at C.A. Johnson or Eau Claire, it was a packed house. But I will tell you this, that probably the player that I actually hated to play against the most was a player at AC Flora High School, and that was Xavier McDaniel, because X was such a man-child in the paint, and also it was just no way to defend a guy who was so physical. And it seems to me like, at the time, of course, I was a coach, it seems to me like the officials just let him get away with pushing and holding and all that kind of thing. And I know if X is watching, he'll probably say, oh, it didn't happen that way. But anyway, that was definitely a challenge for us.
Was he worse than Jermaine O'Neal?
Well, actually, Jermaine was more of a finesse kind of a player as compared to X. Jermaine didn't have the kind of physicality that actually X had, and so Jermaine was very tall and very agile and athletic, and he didn't use his muscle strength as much in high school as X did, and so that was just something. But yeah, getting back to that situation, Eau Claire, C.A. Johnson, it was an epic battle. You know, we battled from the time you throw the ball up until the whistle blows at the end. Everything was just challenging. And I'll tell you this, that I remember, and I laugh about this because in those games, you know, everybody could dunk back then, and so I can remember just relating to what you mentioned about the state championship. I can remember in the first quarter, you know, we were playing a school at the time, Riverside, from up in Greenville, and they had a kid that was a coach's son named Sean Golden, and so Sean came down the lane and dunked the ball, and the crowd went wild, and so my players was like, okay, well, and the reason for that, I'm kind of relating this to the Eau Claire situation, because we played Eau Claire, and you know, if you played schools like AC Flora and Keenan and Columbia High and Dreer, dunking was not a big thing, but I think the Riverside crowd kind of got excited about it, and you know, in the end, I think we won that game by 18 or 20 points or something like that. But you know, the dunk was something that was electrifying, but for a team that experienced that kind of thing on a nightly basis when we played, it wasn't that big of a deal.
It's nothing.
And so you know, I just kind of laugh about that because in the Eau Claire C.A. Johnson games, you know, you had dunks and you had
all the time
shots, three-point shots, and you had everything. And one of the most things that are most vivid about that is you could count on someone running down at halftime, running down the lane or running across the court, doing flips and all kinds of things like that. It was an exciting time, I'll tell you. It was just one that, you know, you can't. Today, you wouldn't believe, you know, what you saw back then. But we had some things that went on, and I'll tell you what, it was just all the coaches, I think, had developed a relationship and a connection with the community such that people felt comfortable going to games and enjoying themselves.
So talk about back in the day. So like, when you compare the two, Coach, has players changed from then to now? Because you can't coach players the way you used to coach players back then.
That's correct.
So has the game changed?
The game hasn't changed as much. I think now the game is more of a full court game. If you watch, and I'll use a good example, in talking about a good player, and you know, most of you know Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson could function well, and he probably would be a much better player back in that time because the game a lot of times was a half-court game. Today's game is a game that's more of a full-court game, and I think I'm using Zion as an example. You know, a guy who's, you know, 6'6" or 6'7" and 280, 300 pounds, you just can't run up and down the court. You know, your knees just won't take that. That was one of the advantages that we had, when I say we, the Columbia area coaches, because most of the coaches ran full court, and we actually pressed full court, and it was a different type of game. But the style of basketball has changed just slightly in that now you do have a three-point line, and you know, if you take 2 threes, that's 6 points, and it takes 3 layups or 3 mid-range shots to do the same thing. So the three-point line has made a difference, as well as the fact that players are different. You know, back during my time, you know, it was a different kind of time, and I use tough love. I don't deny doing that. I use tough love with my players because that's what the players understood and responded to at that time. These days, I don't think you can do the same thing because players get upset if you just even yell. Period. And so now I think the coaches are a little more limited in terms of what they can say and do. Not that at the time when we did things, it was for a different reason. And you know, I love my players, and I think my players understood and know even now that I love them, but I just did things that had to be done at the time to try to motivate the player to try to get the most out of them. Actually, I'll just share this with you. I helped with one of the former players from South Carolina State University, Darius Jackson. And Darius is the head coach at Aiken High School. And I assisted Darius for a year, and I got an opportunity to see how players are, and I kind of sat back and watched and made suggestions, but I do know that players are just different, and the approach that coaches have is different from what we had. I was also working with Corey Saunders. He's one of my former players from Allen University. Corey is the coach at Alcorn Middle School, and so I helped at Alcorn a little bit also, and I'll just tell you, even the youngest of kids these days they are talented, but they just don't want coaches to coach them. And a lot of times, players are actually missing opportunities to remain in athletics because they just refuse to be coached. So that's something, if you just think about it, there is a problem there in that players, for some reason now, just feel like, I know everything, and coach, you can't tell me nothing. That's probably a bad attitude for them to have.
Right. It's almost like they feel like you never played the game or something.
Yeah, they pretty much feel like you don't know anything. I can tell you what to do. And honestly, there are a lot of coaches who probably could still coach, but they elect not to because they don't want to deal with the attitude that the kids have, which is, they know everything, you don't know anything, because most coaches have forgotten more than most of these kids know. But at the same time, the kids just feel like because social media and because of TV, you have the social internet media and all of that type of thing. And so those kids can sit and watch, and they formulate opinions about things, and they get knowledge that maybe during your time and even earlier, players didn't have that kind of exposure, so they didn't think the same way.
Right. So Coach, now, not only was you a coach, but you was in the classrooms as well. You actually taught science, right?
Yeah, I taught biology. I was a biology and chemistry teacher, and actually enjoyed that. I can tell you that I had some enjoyable times. I remember as a biology teacher, I taught biology 1, biology 2, AP and AAP biology. I taught physics. When I went to Lower Richland, I taught physics. But anyway, I was a teacher in the classroom, and I think I got that from the fact that in my family, I had quite a few people who were educators, and as a result of that, it kind of was ingrained in me that my job not only was to be a coach, but as well to be a teacher. And actually, I took teaching seriously. So yes, I was an academician in that respect, and I think that little bit of influence that I may have had on those people who were actually students of mine were actually beneficial. I think about Dr. Brian Hurley right now. Brian is a former student and a former athlete at C.A. Johnson High School. He's a surgeon at Richland Hospital now, as well as I was about to just mention a few others. One person in particular, I won't call her name, but I can remember going to Dorn Medical Center, the plastation, where they have the cadavers and they do the all of the storage of the bodies there for the medical students. And I remember a young lady in my class fainted, from that. And lo and behold, she went on and became a nurse. And actually, I won't call her name because I don't want to embarrass her about the fainting part. But, she went on to become a nurse. And so there are quite a few people that are even working in the medical field, and so many others that I think that maybe I had a little bit of influence on.
Such an impact.
Yeah, that was great.
Such an impact. Such an impact, man. You touched so many young people's lives, man, throughout your years. That has to make you feel good. But I also feel like, that your job is not done. You're still helping coaches, man, and because we need legends like you. You know what I'm saying? Because we are literally, man, here because of you.
Well, Terrance, I appreciate what you're saying, and I kind of think about that, and I do spend a lot of time. I go to all of the University of South Carolina men's basketball games, and I've gone to a few of the women's basketball games. It's just that, I'm not on the list, and it's kind of hard when you're going to a lot of games to keep coming out of your pocket, and so, they just have a different setup there with the women where, the retired coaches are those people who have been involved in athletics. You just don't get that opportunity to go to all the games. But I go to as many of the women's games as possible. I go to high school men and women's basketball games all over the area. Actually, I don't miss you have the Martin Luther King Bash that's held there, as well as the Chick-fil-A Classic,
and
also
the
Bojangles. Yeah, I received an award at the Martin Luther King Bash. One of my former players, Kerry Rich, is involved in the sponsorship of that, and they have this Legends Award thing that they were giving out, and so I received an award there also. I think at the time it was along with Coach Ben Trapp and Van McLeod, as well as a few others. So yeah, I actually have enjoyed that aspect of it, and I continue. But yeah, getting back to the point about coaching, I would love to be involved more, but I think also one of the things that happens is, I enjoy a lot of my time now. Actually, I spend a lot of time on my pontoon, just riding around on Lake Murray. I live in Newberry County, and also I have a bass boat, so I fish some as well. And I'll just be honest with you, there was a time when I coached that I kind of hate to say this, but I didn't get an opportunity to see a lot of my children play and to do the kind of things that a lot of times fathers are able to do, because if you think about it, when your child is out playing on somebody else's team, you're coaching somebody else's son.
Right.
I think that's why, my son, middle son, Brad. Brad actually came to C.A. Johnson. He actually started at Perry and went to C.A. Johnson and played for me, and all that was just an attempt to try to at least spend a little bit of time, with my children while I was out coaching. But that is a kind of a drawback to it. So right now I'm pretty satisfied, with what I'm doing. I would like to get involved somewhat with coaching. I spend a lot of time.
Would you be a head coach again, Coach?
You asked that question. At the college level, I don't think I would want to try that anymore. But at maybe the high school level, it is a possibility. And I think that if the situation was a good situation, then I would probably think that would be something I would probably want to try to do. And I say that because, again, with what's happening now with the economy as well as so many other aspects of what's going on, coaching at the college level is not anything like what most people think it is. And if you are not in an upper major Division I program, then you're probably not making the kind of money that most people think coaches are making. And also, you're probably spending more money than you're making. So, high school, it's a thing where you do it for the enjoyment of it, but the college level, it's a job, and so that's it. As a high school coach, you get paid to be a teacher. You're a teacher first, so that's why I said what I said earlier.
Man, that's awesome, Coach. Man, you spent so many years coaching and teaching, and you've helped so many kids. Especially from that community right there. And we love you, Coach. Listen. None of us would be no way near doing good without you. Without your discipline, because we had so many young men who did not have fathers, and you pretty much were their father, and that had to make you feel good. But you was a coach who, you spent money from your own pocket, man, like food, socks, clothes, whatever you have, you gave to us. But whenever you did yell at us, we knew it was love. You know what I mean? And not a lot of coaches have that anymore.
Yeah, well, that part of it is something that, again, I kind of think that it came from my own experiences as a high school athlete. I had a mother and a father at home, but I also had a father figure at school. And so I respected the fact that at the time Coach Simon was that kind of person, and he was the kind of person that did those kind of things that I also tried to do. So I didn't mind going in my pocket when I went into my pocket to do those types of things. And actually, I laugh about the fact that, when I coached at Allen University, it was 7 years of coaching, but I'll tell you, those 7 years, I probably put more money back into the program, trying to make the program similar to maybe a program that I left, because those things that we were able to do at Allen University, we did at South Carolina State. And at South Carolina State, we didn't have to spend as much money, but I wanted my program at Allen to mirror what I experienced and saw at South Carolina State. So I spent a lot of money. There were many arguments I had, about that situation, because again, I spent money and I knew it was wrong, but it was what I was committed to do. While at C.A. Johnson, it was a pleasure to do it, and I've just got the most pleasure out of seeing so many of my former athletes go on at the time to be able to do the kind of things that they had done, especially being successful. So I didn't mind at all, and I still don't mind. I think, if I had it to do over again, I probably wouldn't change a thing. I would do it exactly like I did it the first time.
Yeah. Well, Coach, whatever you did worked. Trust me, man, it worked, because you were someplace where a lot of coaches, do not want to come coach, because of the whole demographics. And we appreciate you. Like I said, man, you are legendary, but you a father to us first. And
let me say this, Terrance.
Coach.
Yeah, let me say this before we finish. I claim all the success of all the athletes that I coached, all the students that I was involved with. I claim that success, and I claim your success because I just feel good about the fact that you went on, Terrance Tuckers and the other people that went on and had the success that you had. I just want to feel good. I think I'm stroking my own ego by saying this, but at the same time, I feel good because I was involved with people like Terrance and so many other athletes that I have mentioned. C.A. Johnson was, as I said, a blessing to me. A lot of people probably looked at the community itself, and I know that there were a lot of things that were said, but I will tell you that I can name the success of so many people that came through C.A. Johnson. I know that there are many people who can't say what I can say about what happened at C.A. Johnson and in that community, the kind of community support and also the academic preparedness that occurred at C.A. Johnson, because most people have to admit that somewhere along the way, if a person is successful, that academic nurturing had to start someplace.
Right.
And so I think, the success of the C.A. Johnson community, as well as the students and the student athletes, had to result from maybe the fact that people cared. I can say that I often talk about my own experience in attending a school that I just felt like I was going to college. I don't. People say, well, in my community, you either went to college or you went to the military. That was it.
That's
and
it.
So
That's
C.A. Johnson, pretty much, that's what I saw. People, they just had a commitment. Most of them wanted to be successful.
Yeah.
So that's something that you don't find today.
Yeah, not at all, man. And listen, we are fruits from your tree, Coach. Literally, we are fruits.
Well, I appreciate that.
From your tree, and listen, man. We will forever hold you high, Coach. Forever hold you high, because, like I say, man, there is no us. There is no us without this guy right here, man. To my right, man, the legendary Coach Tim Gates, man. I'm telling you, he is the guy, man. Whenever you came to school, you did not want to run into this guy, because I'm telling you, you would have a problem on your hands. But if you was doing what you was supposed to do, I promise you, man, you wouldn't have no issues, man. No issues, okay? Hard but fair. Hard but fair. That's this guy right here, man. Hard but fair. So listen, man, thank y'all, man, for tuning in to this special moment right here for me, man. So many of my friends, man, teammates, okay? We have been waiting on this, man. Listen, my friends, man, listen. They were calling me, man. Jamie Palace and all them boys, man, were hitting me up, man. Say, hey, man, when Coach coming on? So we finally got him on. Make sure you guys watch this show, man, on YouTube. Listen, tune in. Please like and subscribe to the Community Vibes, man, podcast on YouTube. I promise you, you will not be disappointed, man. You basketball heads, make sure, listen, learn your history. Here's one of the GOATs right here, man. Here's one of your legends. You listen, you must know your history, okay? You must know your history, man. There was a time where, listen, man, C.A. Johnson was a powerhouse, okay? And it was because of this guy right here, all right? So thank y'all so much, man, for tuning in, all right? Listen, man, put God first, okay? Make sure you take care of yourself and go out and vote, man.
Go out and vote.
Votes. Yeah,
Definitely.
Use your voice, man. Use your voice. So, Coach, let me ask you this real quick, man. How do you feel about it we possibly having the first female black, vice president?
Well, actually, it will be predicated on whether we actually get out and vote, as you just said. That's going to be first. But yeah, I would feel very good about it. I'm very pleased that, Senator Biden actually selected, an African-American female, Kamala Harris, to be his running mate. And hopefully in November we will be successful, barring any other mishap. If we get out and vote, and if we vote the way we should, I think we will be successful in seeing that come to fruition.
That's awesome. And one more question for you, Coach, man, real quick. before we get out of here, do you feel like we should have sports this fall?
Actually, under the circumstances, my feelings are that maybe we should err on the side of caution by not having sports, especially football. I just can't see us having fall sports, football or any other sport right now with the pandemic being, the way that it is. And if you actually look, many of the states that are involved, I constantly hear people trying to justify it, but if we are actually social distancing in our society now, if we are trying to prevent the spread of this pandemic, how are we going to say we can gather a group of athletes together, especially a contact sport where, football, for example, you're sweating, you're spitting, you have teardrops, you have all kind of body secretions, and I just can't see, any conference saying that we're going to be cautious and concerned about athletes, when we at the same time going to go out and put them out on the field or court and think that they are not going to do what humans do. We're going to make contact. We have to breathe. We have to excrete. And as a result of that, I just can't see sports programs this fall. I'm not in favor of it. If it happens, I'll just put me on record as being a person that's not in favor of that happening.
There you go, man. You heard it here first, man. You heard it here first from the legend himself, man. We should not play this fall, man. Listen, let's take care of each other, man. Listen, it's so important. We have to take care, because these young kids, man, leave it up to them. They want to play, okay?
Definitely.
But we have to be the adults here, okay? We have to be the adults here, all right? So listen, man, thank y'all once again, man, for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel page, man. I'm telling you, more is to come. And this probably will not be the last time you see this guy, all right? So thank y'all so much, man. God bless.
Yo, Kingdom. Community vibes, community ties. Terrance Tucker is the brother who's connecting the tribe. You say you want shine, come get your shine on. You say you want vibes, come get your vibe on. Community vibes, community ties. Terrance Tucker is the brother who's connecting the tribe. Hey, you say you want shine, we'll get your shine on. You say you want vibes, we'll get your vibe on. But there's no better time to get your grind on.